No, I just wanted to hit three things real quickly, kind of by broad swipe. And one is to talk about what you saw if you were on the trip, what you saw from the education in Tennessee, but then also just very, very quickly to talk about Southern Crescent a little bit, but then to spend time on our interface with Fayette County and where I think we need to be talking. It is interesting that the Fayette County schools are teaching the 4 C's and the new 3 R's. Everybody else is teaching the 3 R's, and only one of those actually starts with R. So, I mean, there's some irony in all of this. But I wanted to talk about Southern Crescent just a little bit. This is where our students come from right now. And you can see the green there, Fayette, 651. This is out of a total of about 5,500, 5,557, I think was the number this morning, something like that. So you can see what the percentage there. Our largest group of students actually comes from Henry County, about 2,000 there. And if you hit the next one, I also wanted to put, yeah, wrong one. Oh, there you go. I also wanted to put the school system, and not just the school system, but the school system and the economic engine in the counties in perspective here also. There are about 23% of adult Georgians, as this slide says here, over the age of 18 who have no high school credential whatsoever, neither a high school diploma nor a GED. And that is not necessarily a function of the school system. It is probably more likely to be a function of the economic development of the community than it is the school system, because you have folks moving in and out. You have folks, educated people in general say, drop out of school, are you crazy? But you have folks who are not educated saying, well, it never hurt me none, so I guess you could drop out too. And so there's a lot of expectation, there's a lot of culture, there's a lot of cultural capital is what we talk about there. But as you can see, as these other counties that Southern Crescent supports, and where Fayette County stands in the number of adults who do not have high school. That's an important number. In fact, when we're talking about economic development, that's probably the most important number you're going to look at. Okay, which leads me to the discussion of what we saw in Tennessee, because from day one, person one, moment one, what we heard was we decided that education was our focus. If we didn't have a good education system, none of this other stuff was going to happen. And that was their focus. That's what they did, and we saw how they leveraged all those other things that Matt talked about earlier. I would argue that Fayette County has all of the potential that county and those cities that we saw. That same potential exists here. I think what we're missing here is that they ganged up on education in terms of supporting education, making it their number one priority for everybody. And I think that's what we're missing here. It's not that we don't appreciate it, it's not that we don't support it, but it's not our focus. And I think one of the lessons that we could learn from Henry County, who just came back from a meeting in Atlanta, where they came home with a $3.5 million grant for their career academy. Their focus from their chamber from several years ago was an initiative they called E Squared, Economics and Education. And it was how education drives economic development in Henry County. And as a consequence, now there's now a career academy with a $3 million plus grant, et cetera, et cetera. And it's about getting business, industry, chamber, faith-based organizations, nonprofits focused on, it's not okay to drop out of school. Matter of fact, it's not only not okay, it is critical that you not only go to school, but that you succeed there, that you excel there. I don't think it's a coincidence that two of the biggest educational buzz things right now, besides MOOCs, you've all heard of MOOCs, right? Massive online courses. Two of the other big, huge initiatives in higher education right now are flipped classrooms and learning communities. A learning community is nothing more than a group of people who are working together, studying together, learning together. That's a learning community. And so the concept is we get people with like objectives or like whatever, and we get them working jointly to teach each other, working together to learn. When I was in graduate school, we called it a study group, and it's really just pretty much that simple. But the flipped classroom is that other piece that we're talking about, collaboration. Instead of coming to class and listening to the teacher talk for 55 minutes and then changing classes, what you do, and then go home and do your homework. What you do is you say, look at this podcast, this YouTube, these things online about what today's lecture was going to be over. And when we come back to class tomorrow, let's work together and synergize on that stuff and work it together to solidify our learning and the takeaways of what that class was supposed to be about, what we should have taken from it. And so what you really wind up, the reason they call it a flipped classroom, is you get the lecture at home and you do your homework in the classroom. I mean, that's what it looks like to somebody walking down the hall. Those kids are in there doing their homework instead of the teacher teaching. But what that requires us to do, and it requires the K through 12 system and all of us to do, is to support that teacher, that principal, that system who says, you know, it's okay to come out of the box. A noisy classroom is not a bad place. I used to be the director of the National Science Center. I went schools from literally from Oregon to Florida, from Los Angeles to New York. And what I heard over and over again was, well, you know, when those classes get a little too noisy, you know, the principal or vice principal tends to come down and, you know, kind of quiet them back down. But if you've got a very motivated teacher working hard and you got that flipped classroom thing going, you've got learning going on, kids get excited. The best thing we can do in our schools is to get kids excited about learning. And so, you know, that's the soapbox issues for today. Southern Crescent is a partner in education with the Fayette County school system here. I know Kim has been working very diligently, along with many others, for a career academy in here. I want to touch that base, and then I'll pass this to Kevin. The thing that the College and Career Academy does for students that a typical high school doesn't is it takes away the question of, and you've all heard it, and most of us have asked it when we were in school, when am I ever going to use this? Because the college and career curriculum, by definition, is focused on what are you going to do when you get out of school? What's the career field and all that sort of thing. Now, I have provided 3 sets, one here, one back there, and one over here, of some materials about Southern Crescent, so I'm not going to go there very much. But let me talk to you just 1 second about some other things that we're doing here. And that is, we're mapping every one of the career pathways that the school systems have in Georgia. Okay, and we're starting with the 9th grade, and it tells what, in order to graduate from high school, what you need to take in the 9th grade, and the 10th grade, the 11th grade, and 12th grade. And then below that, it says, oh, by the way, there are some dual enrollment opportunities here. If you want to be, this one happens to be culinary arts. So if you want the career academy and culinary, or rather the career pathway in culinary arts, these are the classes you take, and then when you get eligible, these are the college courses that you could take through Southern Crescent. Now we're parochial. We didn't do Clayton State. We just did our own. But we're mapping all of those career pathways so that when we get to the career academy, if the community says, you know, we really need to have a who's-he what's-it's kind of a curriculum, then we'll be able to map that from the 9th grade on into a productive adult career. And maybe that's a 4-year university curriculum, maybe that's a technical college, maybe it's something different. But that's what we're doing with it right now. What I wanted to, in these last couple seconds, when we talked, or when we heard the community college folks in Tennessee talk about their system, you need to understand that Georgia is unique. We are not like them. We're not like anybody else. We have a K through 12 system, principally and generally run at the local level with some statewide support, statewide supervision, the State Board of Education and all that. And then we have a technical college system wherein the highest degree earned is an Associate of Applied Science, and it's what Tennessee would have called a technical center that sort of operates under the university system, but kind of as the Lone Ranger. And we have 25 technical colleges that operate in conjunction as a system of schools with not totally common, but reasonably common curriculum, a common database. So if a student leaves my college and goes to, say, Americus, to South Georgia Tech, their student number transfers down there, their transcript transfers down there, the courses they have taken, their grades, all of their application materials and all that automatically is just available in a common database among all 25 of our colleges. And there's just not anybody else in the United States doing that right now. And then you have the university system of Georgia, which goes all the way from our world-class doctoral research universities down into the two-year college that are generally designed to transfer students from the first 2 years of the college curriculum into the senior 2 years, so they get a bachelor's degree. So I wanted you to know that we are different in how we approach the whole process from K through 12 to graduate school. Georgia is different than everybody else. Quite frankly, I have been online and on phones with some of the folks who presented in Tennessee, not to find out what they were doing, but to tell them how we've solved their problems. And we really do have a march on some of the folks in Tennessee in terms of our post-secondary education system.